I kinda wanna animate dancing, but I am not a choreographer. Today we're gonna be using video references as guides for our animations. Welcome to my new stop motion based channel, Stop Everything. I wanted to kick things off with an easy one, and I'm already working on streaming over on my gaming channel, so I thought it would be fun to make some animated notification alerts. All aboard the trip to the next me station. Choo-choo. Now we're gonna do two in this video, and both should have some helpful tips for whatever kind of puppet you may have. Now my puppet is mostly hand-drawn, so the first version will be covering those sorts, but the second one is gonna be much more generic for all other types. Also, we're gonna be doing them at two different levels. The first is a little bit more advanced. It has more software, more tech, more materials, more time. The second version, though, is a lot simpler. It can potentially be done for free with no software whatsoever, and I could have done it all in one night if I wasn't, recording it. Let's get started. So the first thing is going to be your motion. This doesn't have to be a dance. It could be any kind of motion. If you want a very specific way for a character to walk, if you want a toy car to move a little bit more realistically, if you're doing a cooking video and you don't know how to animate a runny egg. You see, you can record your movement and you can have that next to you while you're animating. My phone is one of my cameras right now, so this is just the case, but you get the point. Dances are, though, a very fun place to start, and personally, I love dances from the 1920s, so with a little bit of searching, I found one that I was really happy with. Now, because my puppet is mostly hand-drawn, and I'm not super comfortable drawing him just yet, I'm gonna be taking the extra time to make a previs before I start all of this. This step is entirely optional, and if you feel like it's unnecessary, don't do it. You can skip it if you need to. I'll see you later on in the tutorial. I downloaded my video off of YouTube, and I edited it down to just what I needed. Then I moved that into my animation program. Now from here, you can just go frame by frame and draw the motion as you need it. I wanted to pick and choose a little bit here. I wanted to pick my frames precisely. I drew out all the larger movements, like when a foot is being kicked out or when the arms are being pulled in right before before another move. And then I went through and kind of picked out some frames in between to make it a little bit smoother. I did start this out with just a stick figure so that I can make sure I got the movement that I wanted. Then I went to these frames again and drew my character on top of it using the stick figure and the original video as a reference. Now, if my character wasn't so complicated, like if I was just drawing a stick figure, I probably wouldn't have bothered with the previs. I probably would have just gone straight to the end. But seeing as he is complicated and this dance is 30 frames long, I needed to cut it down to something a little bit healthier, like 13. Or so I thought. A fun issue I didn't realize until somewhere around here, the video only showed half the dance. You see, you're supposed to do it one way and then you mirror it and do it on the other side. I genuinely was not prepared for that because now it meant that I'm going from the 13 images that I was drawing to now 26. If I chose to draw them. My character is all symmetrical except for the ring, bracelet, and watch that I wear on my left hand. Other than these, it would have been really easy for me to just do the one set and then flip it in post-production for the other side. So after many days of brainstorming, I decided I was just gonna leave these off of my drawings, and I'll tell you later what I came up with. With my previs looking good and my motion looking the way I want it to, now comes the time for me to transfer it, which for me means cheap dollar store paper being taped to my very expensive Wacom tablet. I trace out my drawings with a sharp pencil, and then I have a template and 3 crayons that I use to make my plaid shirt. I absolutely love mixing art mediums like this. The waxiness of the crayons are going to pick up and reflect the light differently than the pencil will, so it adds a little bit more depth to the character. It's actually why I came up with the whole Wacom tablet tracing table thing, as opposed to just printing these out, because yeah, I do have good pencil and crayon brushes in Photoshop, but it just doesn't look the same. With stop motion, it really is the little things that make all the difference, and if you don't believe me, here's an animation I made using this tracing table technique, and here is an entirely digital animation that I made 100% in Photoshop for work.
I want ice cream now. Will, save me! I want food! I'm so hungry.
After everything's drawn up, I like to rip it out of the paper instead of cutting it because I just like the torn paper edge look. And with that, I am now finally ready to start animating. Now, since this is the more advanced method, I am using the Dragon Frame software for this, which lets you pull up a video reference while you're animating. This is really helpful because I decided to have my character hop around quite a bit more than he is in the previs. And Dragon Frame lets you click back and forth and it moves the video along with your animation, so it's a lot harder for me to lose my place. And you may be wondering, why exactly are you using black construction paper instead of something like blue? I'll tell you. It's because I forgot to go to the store. Pro tip, go to the store. Now, if you didn't do your drawings earlier, you didn't do the Previz stuff, maybe you're doing your drawings while you're animating, like in a whiteboard video, that's totally fine. Welcome to the tutorial. Like you're coming in now, basically. Welcome to the start of it. After editing the video of your motion down to what you need, you just have it playing next to you while you go frame by frame to recreate it. For drawings, pay attention to what things are moving the most in your scene because you may want to accentuate them a little bit. For example, I have one shot here where my leg is being kicked out to the side, but you can kind of see that I have it sort of kicked out, kind of curving upwards in a way that legs don't normally move. That's because that's the direction my leg is being thrown. This helps to show the movement a little bit better. It helps to put weight behind things because that's where the weight of my foot would be going if my legs were a little bit more bendy. This can also be used for things like if you're throwing a right hook into someone's jaw, you can make the fist a little bit larger for the movement to really show the impact better. Or if you're doing something like a sword slicing really quickly, you want to make a really large sword for that shot because, you know, in stop motion, we don't have motion blurs. So you kind of have to fake it. I mean, you can add motion blur, but it's not the same. I don't know. I have motion blur for stop motion on my list. We'll get to it at some point. Now for the symmetry problem. I decided to draw my arm attachments separately from my arm and cut them out with my Adelaide scissors. Actually might have been the hardest part of this whole thing. So that's it. That's all that I'm working with. This is so tiny. Very tiny pieces. Blue tack on a pencil, Lady Adelaide scissors. Let's see what happens. Could have been better. I then just laid them on top of my poses and put them on my left arm for every single frame. Just kind of brush it off onto the other me. Now at the end of the first cycle, where I would need to, you know, mirror the dance, do it on the other side, I saved out the entire animation I had made so far, brought that back into Dragon Frame, and used it as another video reference so that I could go through and remake it shot for shot in the exact same position. However, now I'm putting all of my arm attachments on my right arm instead. This way in post-production, when I flip the second half of the dance, it would still show it all my accessories on my left arm the whole time. I wildly underestimated how uncomfortable it is having this stuff on the wrong arm. Get it off me. At the end, I saved out all my animation, brought it into After Effects, played with the color a little bit, and used a Luma key effect to remove all of the black. Now obviously, this was way more complicated than it really needed to be, and that's mostly just because that's my brand. With my work and school all happening around this, I think this took me roughly 2 weeks to do all of this animation. But my puppet requires to be, you know, hand-drawn ahead of time. If you're working with like clay or Legos, you don't need to do most of that. It's actually quite a bit simpler. So now that we have done a stop motion using a lot of moving parts, metaphorically of course, literally I had to redraw every frame, but I had a lot of steps involved that made it difficult. Now we're gonna change things around a little bit and we're gonna do something that has a lot of moving parts. Literally of course. Metaphorically there's quite fewer steps, but there's going to be a lot of moving pieces in this puppet. All that this version really requires is a camera and YouTube. If you have software or apps, that's fantastic. There are many free ones you can use that will work really well for this. You can see I am using Dragon Frame for this, which is a very expensive software, but this time I am just using it as a remote for my camera. The puppet that I have for this one is a very quick one I threw together in about an hour. It's just a bunch of body parts that I drew up and cut out using my Adelaide scissors. Either find a movement or dance that you want on YouTube or upload your own. How cool is that? Then you're going to use the comma and period to advance forward and backwards, one frame at a time. For this one, I'm still doing a dance, and I decided to do a classic one that I grew up doing called the monkey. For some reason, the night I was recording this, I genuinely could not, for the life of me, find any video reference on all of YouTube of anyone doing the monkey. I don't know why. Thank you so much to Family Guy, episode 815. For being willing to make the impossible joke of a monkey doing the monkey. I genuinely don't know where I'd be without you right now. Now that we're recreating a motion using a puppet instead of, you know, the hand-drawn method, things are gonna be just a little bit different. I talked earlier about stretching your drawings so that you can show movement better, but obviously here you can't do that. My arm is always going to be the same shape and size no matter how much I move it. But you can still accentuate your movements just in a different way. I can do things like moving my arm a little out of its socket so that it shows this movement a little bit stronger. My butt is always gonna be the same shape, and it's something that I live with every day. But I can choose to push it out a little bit more when I bend my knees to make it a little... When I bent my knees, I decided to push my butt out a little bit more to help show the movement. They give it more character, really. They make it look more realistic. Now here's a really important note. Depending on the frame rate of your video source, there's a chance that you might notice some duplicate frames while you're going through. You can see I've got my fingers on the comma and period keys. If we look back here at Mr. James Woods in the center, we're gonna go forward a frame, he moves, forward another frame, he still moves, but then everything's frozen for a moment. This is a duplicate frame. All we're doing right now is figuring out what to do when you come across these freeze frames. Now this is an issue with the movement that you're working with. It means that it's being played back at a different frame rate than what it was actually intended for, what it was made for. It's entirely up to you how you want to handle this, but I highly recommend you only do one of two different options. You can either skip the frames entirely, or you can add the hold frames in as well. Do not try to make a movement between the two. Like if the arm is moving and there's a hold frame in the middle, don't try to add one in where your arm is in the middle. I don't know how to explain it, unfortunately, but it's gonna throw off your movement really badly if you do. Now, I personally chose to leave the holds in, and that means that now my dance is going to move at the same exact pace and speed as my reference video, which I liked that speed, so that worked with me. But if I had chose otherwise, I could have skipped those hold frames and I could have then chosen what speed I wanted to be played back in the end, which is very helpful like in a dance like this, if I wanted to play it back at different speeds depending on what song is playing. To simplify, if you want your motion going at the exact speed and pace as your reference video, keep the holds. If you want to choose that speed and pace yourself later, remove the holds. Speaking of which, despite the fact that I am supposed to be recreating this one for one, I could not help myself to tweak it a little bit. As I was working on it, I decided to add just a little bit of a head tilt so I'm like bobbing back and forth because I honestly just thought it looked cute. This happens every time. I go into an animation with a plan and a schedule and I know what I'm gonna do. And then kind of as I work with the puppet, I sort of see how the puppet kind of wants to behave. How does it want to move? I accidentally drew my arms quite a bit bigger than I meant to, but they ended up being perfect. I loved them being so large compared to my body. It's like I talked about earlier, you know, they are the thing the most in movement, so making them a little bit larger helped to really show off the movement. I didn't plan it that way, but it worked out in the end. That really is just the magic of this kind of art, you know? Whether you're working on it for 2 hours or 2 weeks, like just getting to see the paper come to life in the end, it's really something. It's really something. I hope you found something helpful in all of that. I had a wonderful time making this. I'm saving these out as gifts to use later on for my streaming, and they just make me so happy to look at. Please, if you found this video helpful, let me know, and if you have any questions, leave them for me down below. Everything I did in this video I would consider to be a great starting exercise for someone just beginning, just getting into animation, who's learning to work with puppets and motions. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. I did not intend for my rump to be that, that good. Wow, look at that. Okay, let me put the glass down and take a picture so it'll last longer.